Walmart. I said, look,
Yo, bro,
oh
I
yeah,
love where you were just about to go.
yeah.
I love where you were just about to go.
Mhm.
Code keepers. This is a very difficult day for me. This is a very difficult day for me, and I wanted to make sure that we had a tool in our empowerment arsenal that helped us through some of these difficult days like this. Let me share with you exactly why this is a difficult day for me. All right. So I received this message from one of the young ladies I helped raise. So before I got married, I was mentoring a family, and I really became like the father to this mother's son and daughter. And I was a really strong father figure in their lives until the time that I got married and I started raising my own family. And even though this beautiful message came across, the next message was, I miss you. The next message was, I miss you. And being a dutiful husband and father, I ended up spending more time with the family I was building. And that departure, I think, hurt that young man and that young woman. And I really feel scarred about that. And I actually been struggling with that. But she says, I am forever grateful. So there's something sweet in this message, but it's still a difficult day for me. I miss this man. I miss this man dearly. You know, I had my father for, 40 some years of my life. And during that time, my father was ever present. You know, I watched him in the pulpit giving messages. I watched him in the community giving direction, guidance, Afrocentric messages, pro Black consciousness. He did a lot of great things. And I still want to emulate the accomplishments of my father. And uh, so, Father's Day for the Varners and for me in general, me in specific, has been very difficult. This day was one of the hardest days of my life. And it wasn't just hard for me, my whole family struggled through this. But when that coffin closed, and for about 10 years, I was in a fog. Code keepers, for 10 years, I was really in a fog. And many of the code keepers know that my mother passed in October. This is Father's Day 2023 currently, and my mother transitioned, became an ancestor in October. And one of the challenging things about my mother passing is it brought back memories and the pain of this day and the days that preceded this day. So the message is, we miss you. And we miss our fathers for a number of reasons. It might be death, like my case. It might be divorce. It might be departure, going to jail or just leaving a relationship. It might be disability. But the grief is the same. So, on today's episode of Get On Code, we're going to deal with how we can deal with the grief of losing somebody that was dear to us, how we can get past that father loss and still be on our course for empowerment, where our situation is in our hands and we can affect the outcome of all of our situations. That road to empowerment. Our code here is empowerment. So today's episode of Get On Code, we're dealing with father loss, grief, and how we can stay on the road to empower. All right, welcome to Get On Code, the Fly Guy Show, which is a series of melanated conversations focused on empowerment, health, wealth, and knowledge of self.
People think in binary choices because they are conditioned to.
And on the wall was a picture of a wolf and a lion. I think the wolf was the Democratic Party, the lion was the Republicans.
But the drug trade and all these illegal stuff that people do, that's still economics. It's just that they couldn't do it in a traditional system.
We're talking about melanated wealth.
So we can build wealth, but we just, for some reason, don't seem to be able to transfer it.
You had a great experience. Fine. That means nothing.
What were you told as a child about education? You had to be how many times better?
Every impression without an expression becomes depression.
And I want to dedicate this show, these moments, my tears, and the struggle to my father. May his memory continue to be a blessing. May his name continue to be a sense of strength. May his legacy be a lamplight to greatness. And to deal with our topic tonight, our old faithful Minister Zumbi is in the spot, man. Good to see you, good brother. And look, Code Keepers. We got a new one for you. Code Keepers. Hanging out with us from the We Grieve Differently podcast is Queen Carolyn. So, Carolyn, welcome to the Get On Code show. We thank you for being a part of today's show. I mentioned that she had a podcast, and the podcast deals with how people deal with grief differently.
Mm-hmm.
Zumbi, I'm going to ask if you and I can just step back for a second and, let the woman have the first word.
All right. Check.
Carolyn, you help people through your podcast deal with grief. How did you come to that spot?
First of all, thank you for allowing me to be an honored guest on your show. And it's a joint podcast. So I and Dawn Allen, we co-host We Grieve Differently. And we came to that because my husband died first. And when he died, Dawn came over and sat with me. And then her husband died. And I went over and sat with her. So the two of us, widows, just kind of processed the loss. And what we came to realize is, although we're both widows, we truly go through, it's two different experiences. So very interesting that your show today would talk about the loss of fathers. So my children are all adults grown out of the home. Dawn's children are still in the home. So her boys are 14 and 8. So they are truly dealing with the loss of a dad in the formative stages of their lives. So although my kids are grown, my daughters are in their 20s. So to have lost their dad in their 20s, that's a huge loss for them. So today they're both basket cases, not being able to process. My daughter had her first child 7 months ago. So now this is her first Father's Day without her dad and her daughter not knowing her father. So all of us experience loss so differently. And although we may all have lost our dads, it's the impact that our dads had on our lives, and then how we continue to move through. I just want to give you a little correction. Earlier in your segue, you talked about how you get through, how you get on the other side. You don't get on the other side. You just kind of go through grief. You just navigate the waters. You don't ever get over it. It is always a part of you. And it's a good thing. So sometimes we think the grief is the enemy, and the grief is not the enemy. It is not the enemy. You embrace it, you deal with it, you sit with it, you talk about it, you cry, you get angry, and then you keep moving, but you never get over it. You never get over it. So, yeah.
Thank you for that correction, Queen.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can truly appreciate that, because, as I said, I was in a fog for about 10 years. And one of the difficult things is in that fog, I don't think I was the best father I could have been. There are things that I missed, and I know in parenthood you're going to miss some things. You're not going to see. You're just not going to see everything. But
Right.
I think looking back, there were some things that I missed grieving in the fog.
Okay.
That has gotten me to the point where I really want to get past. I want to get past it. I want to get on the other side.
But the way you get to the other side is you go through it. And whatever you think you didn't do because you have today, you can either do it today or you can explain to your kids what you wanted to do but didn't do and because of why. And so Seiko, by that being open and honest and transparent with your kids and even your wife, then that helps them go through. So just like your dad left you a legacy of the things that he taught and did, you can teach your family the things that you did or didn't do. And that is unfortunately why grief is such a stigmatism, because we don't talk about it. So you got today, so you could say, you know what, kids, today is Father's Day. I'm missing my dad. And I know that when he died, it took a part of me out. And there was a part of me that wasn't present with you all. And I am so sorry. And then allow your kids to say either, yeah, Dad, you missed it, or to say, no, Dad, you were good. Because oftentimes, Seiko, we are much harder critics on ourselves than anybody else in our lives. So this gives you a perfect opportunity to have conversation with your kids, with your wife. Say, babe, what I missed? And she can say, no, babe, you were spot on. And they might have given you grace. So sometimes you got to give yourself a little bit more grace.
And Code Keepers, you can see why we have Queen Catherine on, right? You can see why we have this Queen on, because
thank you.
We often need people to help guide us through the challenges, particularly if we're moving towards empowerment. And the Get On Code show is all about empowerment. So how does this lead to empowerment? We're going to get to that. And I think that Carolyn has kind of tapped into that already. Brother Minister Zumbi, our regional metaphysician. I can't say so. I can't talk to you. It's a hard day, bro. It's a hard day. Yo, man, what's your experience with the challenges of father loss? And let's see what Carolyn has to say to you.
Well, I'll, the first thing that came to mind today, if you haven't listened to the song by Eric Clapton called My Father's Eyes, it's a very telling story where Clapton talks about sitting on both sides of the fence as a son and now as a father, where he talks about now he's looking at his son through his father's eyes. Okay, so if anybody wants to go check that song out, and I think this song is very apropos. For me, the way I've dealt with the father figures, father, grandfather, great uncle, etc., I think I've had more of a detachment, and I'll tell you why. Many of my father figures were in that activist community. And so what they relayed to me was when they make the transition from elder to ancestor, okay, don't lose sight of what we taught you. Don't lose sight of what needs to be done. It's like what Dr. Clark said in that documentary that Wesley Snipes produced. He says, if you lose the man on page 13, turn to page 14 and keep stepping, because don't make this about me. It's bigger than me. I'm just passing the baton to you. Okay. So they didn't want me to get into that whole grieving thing. What they wanted to make sure was I was prepared to take the baton once they were gone. Okay. So it wasn't really about grieving per se. It was about being prepared for when they're no longer here. It's kind of like I don't know if you're familiar with the concept called the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so in the beginning stages, and this is in all world mythologies that Joseph Campbell discovered this. So the main character or the hero comes upon this elder, grandmaster, teacher, jegne, whatever term you want to use. And after kind of like an initial, I guess you would say, training period, that elder disappears, whether he dies or whether he goes somewhere else. So that's when the real journey for the individual begins. There's an old African proverb that says, only when the father becomes an ancestor does the son truly become a man. Because now all of those manhood lessons that was instilled in you, now you have to rely on them and trust them moving forward.
So, bro, you trying to intellectualize instead of feel the pain? Is that?
No. It's no. We're not denying pain. We're just saying don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it consume you, and don't allow it to make you forget what your assignment is. Okay. That's all I'm saying.
So if I can kind of respond, because you went deep on me, that's good. So grief is an internal response to an outside stimulus. So whether you have loss of life or just loss, it's an emotion that you feel. So grief is physiologically felt inside. And if you don't address it, you keep it inside. So mourning is the outward expression of what you're inwardly feeling. So if you don't address it, at some point, it's going to come out. And if you don't address it correctly, it's going to come out in negative ways. It's going to come out in anger. It's going to come out in how Seiko said, for 10 years, he's in that fog. So oftentimes, things happen, and the quote is correct. So a man becomes, man once his dad becomes the ancestor. But if you weren't taught to how to process that and to get it out, and you don't have to get it out by talking or whatever, but you got to figure out a way to get it out. But for the most part, we aren't taught how to get it out. You have a loss, and we can go stereotypical, boys don't cry, suck it up, they in a better place, let's keep it moving, tears not gonna bring them back. So now you got all these emotions, you recognize the reality, yeah, I got to keep going on, but there's also there's a flip side to that reality. You got some stuff inside of you, and at some point you got to deal with the stuff, and if you don't, the stuff will deal. I used to always tell people, if you don't deal with grief will deal with you. So you got to mourn. You got to mourn. You got to get it out. The Word of God says that blessed are those that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So it's in there for a reason. So therefore, you got to be able to mourn so that you can be blessed, and so therefore you can be comforted. So it's kind of like a hand in hand. But we as a society, we don't mourn. We stop it and we keep it moving. You got a loss, you do the funeral thing, you do the rites, and then you keep it moving. And then a few months later. And Seiko said it great. So his dad died. He's sad for the moment. Then when his mother dies, years later, now all that stuff comes up. And the stuff comes up. Why? Because he didn't really deal with it when his daddy died. So at some point, you just at least acknowledge it. Man, this is kind of rough. This is kind of sad. Then you can keep it moving. But if you don't even at least acknowledge it, it'll come back up. It'll come back up. Always does.
Wow.
Always does.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's coming back because I didn't deal with it the first time.
Right. You dealt with it. You probably just dealt with it a little bit. You might have shed a tear, might not have shed a tear, but really just that physiological loss that's a significant loss. That's a significant loss. You lose your keys, you're going to get upset. You lose your phone, you're going to get upset. So how is it that when you lose a person, you're like, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. And you're not really okay, right? And it's okay to not be okay for the moment. Now, you're right. You can't stay in that not okay. At that point, then, yeah, you go get some therapy. So, but yeah.
Intriguing. Intriguing. So Carolyn, based on what you're sharing,
Yeah.
what are some things that I could have done after my father's passing that would have allowed me to handle the grief in a more, I don't want to say effective way, pragmatic way, but in a way that would have allowed me to be more present for my children, for my,
either to have
for my
acknowledged
mother.
it, to acknowledge it. Yeah, dad is sad. Dad is sad. But as a man, can you really tell your kids that you sad? And still be considered, because we got all this stuff and how we're supposed to respond and how we're supposed to do, we don't do them. And then life throws us curveballs, and which aren't really curveballs because none of us are getting out of this alive. But when the death happens, it kind of shakes us off our feet for a little bit and like, ooh, I gotta go on and I gotta be strong for my kids. There's a part that you have to be strong, but then there's a part, even in your sadness, that's strength. There's strength in that. So because talking about it is good, acknowledging that this is where you are. Or my biggest thing is just sitting with it for a minute. But we are an active culture. We always got to be doing something. So you got to do, but then you can do something, do the things, because men grieve differently, and how men heal is different. For a woman, I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna find a friend, we're gonna sit, we're gonna cry, and that gets it out. For a man, you might have to have done some things to have honored him. But the best thing to do is just kind of sit with it. Just sit with it. Like, okay, I'm gonna take a moment. But we tend to run from those moments because those moments make us sadder, and we don't really want to be sad. So therefore, let me go do something and deny. So we kind of stay in denial. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. Some people ask you, how you doing, Seiko? I understand your dad died. I'm okay. I'm okay. Lies. You're not okay. But to say that you're not okay, make folks look, but dang. So you say, you know what, it's a rough day right now, but I will be okay. But in this moment in time, and I thank you for asking that. I see both of y'all asking, like, okay.
No, he's muted.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you, Seiko.
Oops, I did it again. I'm just kind of reveling in, this is one of the first times that I've seen Zumbi kind of take some response and just kind of process it, because he's normally Mr. Receipts. He comes with the receipts and the research. The brothers read everything, and I tell you, your response to what Carolyn said was kind of intriguing, bro. It was kind of intriguing. What were you going to say, bro?
And like I said, I'm speaking probably more from personal experience than anything, and that's why I said when you come out of a situation where, for me, there's a lot of emotional detachment, so I may not have all of the connections that other people have, so I may take things differently. Okay, where I don't engage in what I call Oprah moments. Okay, mainly because.
Can I pause you for a second, bro? I like the way that you said I handle it differently.
Okay.
I like the way you said that, because the name of her show, her podcast, is We Grieve Differently. Yeah, definitely. So unpause. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So I don't really engage in Oprah moments, mainly because what does it do for me? Okay. It's like, okay, it's almost like, okay, what's coming. And this is not to belittle anyone's grief or anything, but for me, it's like, okay, there's certain inevitabilities I understand that's going to happen. The question is, what am I going to do as I navigate through it to get to the other side.
Mhm.
Okay. So like I said, that's me, because I don't have all of these emotional connections that most other people have. That's why for me, I'm probably more detached than anything.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
also how a lot of my my grandmaster teachers, many who are now ancestors, have pretty much trained me to be, to where don't make this about me. Okay. It's bigger than me. You know, I even remember when Jim Brown, in one of his later interviews, he says, look, don't have a funeral for me. Don't have any kind of spectacle for me. Cremate me, throw me into the Pacific Ocean and keep it moving.
So
Okay.
can I pause right there? Because oftentimes, and I've heard that, and oftentimes for you, Minister Zumba, so your life is significant, I would imagine. So the people who you have impacted them. So at your passing, to just get rid of your body diminishes what they felt for you. So oftentimes at death, it really is no longer about you directly, but it's about the impact that you had on others. So it gives others an opportunity to honor that, and then how they then carry on. So sometimes the lesson may not be for you, but it's how you then impact others to continue to go on. Because it's not like we just forget that you ever existed and keep it moving. Because not everybody will have that detachment. They will appreciate your life and what you stood for and what you taught and what you poured into them. And that's how you sometimes keep it moving as well. So.
Yeah, I guess, you know, what I always try to tell young men is, and I guess it also speaks to what is your level of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
How you've been trained to deal, and, you know, speaking, I guess, from a man's perspective, you're not denying it. It's just a matter of not allowing the emotions to drive the car.
Okay.
And I've seen too many young men allow that to happen and put themselves in situations that can be compromising to almost fatal.
Okay.
And so what I tell them is, I said, look, we're not saying you don't have emotions, but as men, it's like what Vito Corleone said in The Godfather: men can't afford to be careless.
Okay.
Okay. And especially if you have been made the, I guess, whether you would say the cornerstone or the foundation of something. Okay. Maybe there's certain luxuries you don't get as a man, especially as an African man in an anti-African environment.
Sure.
Okay. So it's almost like, you know, how can you, I guess, for a lack of a better term, when you feel like you're in a wartime situation,
right,
the rules change.
Right.
And you have to be cognizant of that. That's why I say men can't afford Oprah moments, because those moments can not only be perilous for him, but for those who may depend on his leadership, depend on his production, provision, protection, etc.
You bring up some really interesting points, Zumbi. And I really think that's the concept of manhood that we grew up with. That may have been the emotional concept of our time period, right? Because, you know, it was different. Like, here's a picture of my father, and my father's on the left, and on the right is Jackie Robinson. So my father was a mentor of types with Jackie Robinson. I reportedly met him when I was 3 and used to go to his house and blah blah. Don't remember it, but I do remember this picture. And I have in the book that Jackie Robinson did, his memoir, he talks about my father. So they grew up in a very different time where men had to push everything down because there were some things that we had to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying just men and that women didn't either. So, but I'm saying in terms of fathers had to push some things down, some of the emotional challenges down because they had to get some things done, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we're in very different times now, and for better or worse, in some cases, I think that the youth of today, they in some ways, I'm like, man, they can't handle anything. But then I'm also wondering, are they more mentally healthy because they're expressing their challenge and they're dealing with their grief and they're seeking out therapy and assistance and grief groups and all these other things that maybe were not available to us. Maybe we thought it was, emasculating to get involved in some of these activities. Maybe we thought that we didn't need them because our fathers, our mentors, our jegnas, our master teachers, our leaders didn't talk about those things. I mean, I know that Dr. King had counsel. He talks about it in his books. But we don't talk about that part. I know that the Honorable Minister Farrakhan received counsel. I know that Malcolm X received counsel. I know that Amos Wilson received counsel. I know that Dr. John Henrik Clark received counsel. And to bring it today, I know that Tariq Nasheed and Jason Black and Professor Black Truth and Yvette Carnell and Michi X, I know they received counsel. But we don't necessarily talk about it in a uplifting way. And I'm wondering now, brother, if you and I are still not relics, but if, we're examples of our time period. And if the reason that I pushed everything down for 10 years, if the reason that you were able to deal with it by not necessarily allowing it to take over, is that the consciousness, the mental consciousness, the emotional health consciousness of that time? And since times have changed, do we need to change? That's something I'm just postulating.
I think it's more of a, and not to really get on the youth of today, but I also wonder about the mental and the spiritual toughness that they had versus you and I. Okay. There were things where they weren't available. Okay. So we had to, and maybe we are products of our era. Okay. Now, I've always said this: have things really changed, or have they just gotten more sophisticated? And where now you need a different kind of mental and spiritual toughness to navigate this world. Okay. Because here's why I tell my nephew, all right, I said, I can teach you about the past, but you have to teach me about the future so I can help you navigate it. Because the things that may have worked for you and I may be obsolete and irrelevant for him. Now, certain things are timeless. You still need mental toughness. You still need spiritual toughness, because racism, white imperialism hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it's metamorphosized into a more sophisticated beast. And so now what I'm saying is, for young men of today, how do we instill a mental and a spiritual toughness that's relevant for them to navigate through this maze?
And I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoy and love what Carolyn and Dawn Allen bring to the table. Their podcast, We Grieve Differently, they're talking about their grief. They're talking about the challenges that they have, and I, I wonder if Zumbi, you and I need to do more of that. I'm wondering if men need to do more of that. One of the other brothers that I really spent a lot of good time with is the Dr. Charles Corprew. And Dr. Corprew has a show as well. It's called What's Your Revolution? And I want to take this quick moment and showcase some of the things that Dr. Corprew talks about on the What's Your Revolution show, because I think it's really instructional on how we can, deal with some things, because Dr. Corprew says
when
this.
you lose a father, it is a huge void. Post Christmas, I have been trying as much as I can to celebrate my father, to not be sad that he's gone, to miss him greatly. I actually dreamt about him last night and actually felt somewhat of an embrace in my dreams. It does present a void. And you are a daddy's boy and you grow up with that affinity and affection. And then when they leave, and then someone else steps in. Fathers are strategic male figures in our lives at our times, whether it be our fathers or people who step in, or father figures, have a tremendous role in our growth. And the point that I think that I'm belaboring here is that having that father figure, or that mentor or role model, even now, is still significant to our growth.
Right.
And we keep talking about revolting and evolving, and like, who are those people, or that, that we can find to help us revolt and evolve?
And so this kind of gets me to, maybe we need to do something different. Maybe we need to do what Carolyn and Dawn does. Carolyn said earlier that we have to, honor and, give remembrance. And, I do that. I pay pour libation for my parents and for my ancestry. And, I've been doing that. That's something that my father started when we were young. So, he gets his flowers. He gets his water. Code keepers, it's time to do a water break. So get your water, code keepers. Oh, Carolyn has her water. I meant to tell you, we do water breaks.
Okay.
We do water breaks. We're trying to show that it's important for us to have that living water, to drink that water that we're not going to go into the science today, because we're not talking about that. But
Okay.
drink your water, code keepers. Drink your water, code keepers. What else can we do to make sure that we stay emotionally and mentally as healthy as we can be, so we can go about the business and carry on the struggle, carry on the agenda, stay on code, the same way that we talk about being on code, and our code is empowerment. How can we do some other things? What are some other things? You mentioned giving tribute. All right, that's cool. Dr. Corprew just talked about, finding other figures who can give you similar guidance and can also be a father figure in your father's absence. What are some of the other things that we can do, Carolyn?
So you guess may shoot me down because it's an Oprah thing. Journaling is always nice. I mean, even Dr. King wrote letters. If you go scripture, you had David who wrote the Psalms out. So if you can't talk it out, you can always write it out. And oftentimes we don't tend to like to write, but writing is very, very therapeutic, because it's another avenue, it's another venue to get what's in you, to get it up, get it out, put it on paper, and then you can move on. So writing about it, stuff like what you're doing, Teiko, just talking about it, just having conversation, and bearing witness to somebody else's struggle. Like, yo, dude, I see you're struggling. Okay. And then you keep it moving. Finding good people that have a good ear without judging. Like Charles said, be a mentor, give to somebody else. Best way to feel better is really to pour into somebody else. We rejoice in people's gladness, but you also help when you carry their sorrows with them as well. So, because not everybody has it together every day, all the time. So there are seasons in life when you dip, and if you're conscious of somebody else's dip. But the only way sometimes that you'll know that there's a dip if somebody feels safe to say, I'm dipping. Today is just not a good day, but I'm going to be okay. But too many folks, they mask up. They put this thing on, I'm good, and they struggle through it. They do whatever. And then you look at your depression rates. You look at your suicide rates. Folks ain't all that good if they got depressed or if they killing themselves. They ain't really all that good. And normally when you have someone that dies by suicide, then the first thing other people say, wow, I didn't know. Didn't know. Well, maybe you didn't know because they didn't feel comfortable telling or talking. They didn't feel safe. So that's how you do.
So, Brother Zumbi, is this Oprah foo-foo? Is this woo-woo? Is this some punk-ish? You know, what's she saying? What do you think, bro?
But I think that speaks, and I said this in a panel discussion a few years ago. A woman from Miami was saying, well, my man don't talk to me, blah, 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 blah. And I asked her the question, does your man feel emotionally safe anywhere on this planet?
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's no emotional sanctuary for African men to lay their burden down, what do you expect?
Good point. Good point.
Because again, I go back, when you're in a war type situation, okay, certain luxuries you don't get. In a war type situation. If you know that you've got to do combat, and it could be not necessarily physical, psychological, spiritual, cultural, political, economic. Okay. So there's real issues that sometimes we just either don't have access to some of the things discussed earlier, or we just don't really have the time for. Okay. So that might work in peacetime, but what is the package for when you're in wartime?
So unfortunately, in wartime, so when you have people in wartime, in physical war, in actual war, this is unfortunately why your people are coming back now and they're dying by suicide, because they have been in situations of war, and you got that stuff that you're not unpacking. You're not unpacking. So you have been in combat, physically in combat, and you can't process it with anyone. Why? Because you got to keep it moving. You got to keep it moving. If you don't deal with grief, grief will deal with you. Grief will deal with you. So your point about the woman's, so you're right. So men specifically have to find a place where they can feel vulnerable and they can share. And you are 100% correct. Not all women will create that environment of safety. And all it takes is one wrong thing. Like, oh, you crying? You're supposed to be a man. And therefore that shuts it down. That shuts it down 100%. So you are 100% right, my brother. So if the man does not feel comfortable, he's not sharing. So again, it goes back to how do we teach? How do we teach? So when Seiko's dad died, and he admitted, he knows now today that he missed some stuff. He missed some stuff. How he teaches that lesson is to go back and teach his sons. You know what? Dad missed some stuff. Don't show that I just missed some stuff. Now, how does he teach his son not to miss some stuff when his son goes forward? That's how you pass the baton. Dad, because his son is looking at him like Dad had it all together, but Seiko's saying, no, I didn't have it all together. So now his son, I'm thinking when you start talking, I'm thinking of the movie Black Panther. So when King T'Challa's dad died, when he goes to the ancestor land, he's like, Dad, why you didn't tell me? Why you didn't bring the son in? Because his dad, like, well, you don't got to do what I got to do. And now King T'Challa all messed up. Like, if somebody just told me we could have done something different. So then King T'Challa like, okay, we gonna do this thing. That was
Wait. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see. Oh snap. She just took us to Wakanda, bro. She just took us to Wakanda. All right. So Wakanda we will go. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming. Wow.
But think about it. Yeah, he got upset that he didn't know that he didn't have an opportunity to kind of process that. So he's the king, but he didn't have time to process that. So even for him, he had to be able to process that. He had to be able to process that his dad had done something that nobody talked about. And so now you got the other son out there, or, you know, warmonger or whatever. But I'm just saying, so those are the things that we don't teach our young boys how to process. And then for women, we don't teach our women how to create safe environments either. Why? Because we keep that thing that they got to be strong. But even in your strength, you need somebody to be able to provide warmth, safety, and comfort. Warmth, safety, and comfort. Babe, I got you. I hear you. Who, you had a rough day today. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Other than just be there physically, how can I support you emotionally? How can I support you spiritually? The physical part, we got that down. But there's some other parts of our beings that need stuff. So we just kind of just go through the motions. You just go through the motions. So.
Code Keepers, as you can see, she has a background in therapy. Yo, I'm telling you, watching movies with you must be crazy. Watching movies with you. I mean, her late husband was one of my frat brothers.
Yeah.
Peace to the brother. May he rest well in Omega. But watching movies with you must have been crazy. Because you're sitting there dissecting everybody.
Can we just watch the movie? I know this is deep. It's a whole nother level.
That part. Yeah, but yeah, process and teach. Yeah. So we appreciate what you're talking about, Queen. That's woo. All right, so I gotta know what you thought about Wakanda Forever. All right, so if the challenge that that King T'Challa faced wasn't resolved,
right?
Did he unfortunately pass on a legacy to I can't think of the Queen's name, his sister. Wow. I'm having a
okay. So think about so if we stay with Wakanda Forever, if we go to the second one, you're absolutely right. So the sister, right? So he's dying, and she has got to be so focused because she's looking for how to save him, and she can't. But she's not processing any of that. So what's she doing? She yelling at folks. She's screaming at folks. She's firing folks. Again, she's not dealing with the grief. So if you don't deal with grief, grief deals with you. So that was a wonderful movie to just show how if you don't deal with this stuff that's internal, you eating you up, how it then comes out. So remember, so when she went to the next land and she saw Warmonger, he said, "Well, you become just like me. You just angry."
Oh, you just put that in new context. Because now, I mean, I saw that. I heard that. I actually appreciated that when she's speaking with, when she's speaking with Killmonger in the ancestral plane, and he says, "You're just like me." He had some emotional challenges that were never addressed.
Bitterness, anger, he got all that stuff. But he's in combat on a regular basis. He got all them bumps, all the people that he done killed. But on the outside, he looking like he got it together. But you're absolutely right. So when you start listening to that brother, you realize he ain't got it all together. He got some stuff that's eating at him. He ain't processed that stuff.
Well, I still want to say Killmonger was right. I still want to say movie one, Killmonger was right. There were some things that Killmonger said, and I was like, yes, King. Yes, King. That's right and exact. So I will say that I still think that Killmonger was right. But you're really making me see. This is why I love Marvel movies. Boo DC. Boo DC.
I know. Boo DC.
Superman.
No.
Come on. Well, I'll give him Batman, but boo. But Marvel is so marvelous in the way that it structures the character development and the writing. And what does this have to do with dealing with father loss. One of the code keepers just let me know it was Surrey.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but that's intriguing. And I think going back to the question was, how does this lead to empowerment? And as we round out our show, how does this awakening, understanding that we can embrace some of these strategies, the strategy of therapy, the strategy of journaling, Dan Tres Omi, salute to the God, mentioned that he journals all the time. And you talked about Dr. King's journals. We talked about paying tribute to the father. Dr. Corprew talked about finding not replacements, but other men to give us guidance. Zumbi talked about some strategies as well. Zumbi talked so much, I really have to take notes, and I didn't take notes this time, so I can't go back on the notes, bro. But you did say that we need to take the guidance from those people and really kind of follow out their mission. And I guess that's a way of paying tribute. What are some other things that can lead to empowerment so that our communities can be better and more beneficial than we inherited them?
So for me, I'm always going to talk about speaking truth, and you speak the whole truth. So you speak the good and the things. So as brother said, that you're on a combat mission. So that there is a truth, but then there is the other side to the combat mission. That there is a time when you are in combat, but then when you come out of that moment, even if it's just for a moment, you have to be able to breathe, take a deep breath. You got to woosah. But to speak of that peace, I think what happens is there's a piece that's missing. So therefore, if that piece doesn't get spoken, then there is not complete. It's not 100% truth. And if it's not 100% truth, then it doesn't lead to 100% empowerment. You only get a portion of it. You don't get the totality of the freedom of mind that you can have if you're able to speak the truth. And there is no shame in saying, you know what, this is rough, but I'm gonna be okay. You got to find that place where you can say it. You can't say it to one. There's somebody out there that can hear your truth. There's somebody out there that can hear your truth. When no one can speak your truth, you stuff it, and it's not good for anybody.
Zumbi, what say you, brother?
I'll say, like I said, I could really only speak from my own experience of what I had to do. Okay. And, for some, it may not be, quote unquote, the thing. It may be so-called barbaric, but I have to stay in a solution-oriented frame of mind. No matter what's going on, I have to stay in a solution frame of mind and not allow the moment to overtake what I'm supposed to do in a movement. Okay. And maybe that's what I'm getting at, is the fact that the movement is bigger than a moment. Okay. Someone making a transition, it's a moment. It's a significant moment. But it can't be the totality when there's a movement that's still in front of you. Okay, so maybe that's what I'm getting at tonight is don't allow the moment to overtake the movement.
Ashe. And I think if we take what Queen Carolyn has been saying, along with what you just said, one of the ways we make sure that our grief doesn't prevent us from finishing our mission, the movement, continuing the agenda, is by doing those strategies that she talked about. So code keepers, hopefully you wrote down some of those strategies that Carolyn and Zumbi talked about. And hey, look, we got a few more minutes. We normally go about an hour. We have a few more minutes. I want to bring in a conversation that we need to have, because some of the code keepers are dealing with fathers or let's say fathers who were imprisoned. And if you go back on some of the other shows on the Our Black Empowerment channel on YouTube, you'll find this this video is 10 years old, by the way. This is a young Dr. Umar Johnson, and I think he has a really interesting message that I want to kind of tap into for a second. Then I want to get everybody's feedback on his message. So his message is for mothers primarily, who have sons primarily whose fathers are imprisoned, and his advice for them. Let's check this out.
African American children are more likely to have an incarcerated father, and their mothers are less likely to take them to visit their fathers. Now listen to me, mamas and dads. But because there's more black men in jail, but the sisters are catching up. Listen to me. Some of y'all got this belief that if my son goes sees his father in jail, that's going to make him a criminal. It's going to desensitize him to jail. Guess what? The evidence is actually the opposite. A child of an incarcerated father is 7 to 9 times more likely himself to end up in jail. So if you take him to see his father will teach him how this ain't the place to be. And I don't ever want to see you here. Some of you all are sowing the seeds of juvenile delinquency because you got a son who ain't connected with the dad, who thinking jail life is all that because you don't allow his father to teach him that it ain't. And sooner or later, he ends up in the exact same place you never wanted him to be just because you didn't think it was necessary to take him up to the jail. I'm working on a project right now, Gradford Prison, Pennsylvania, one of the largest maximum security prisons in America. Myself, state representative, and some other folk. We have a FACT program. Okay, it's a fatherhood program.
All right, so that's Minister. I'm not Minister. That's Umar Johnson back in the day. I wanted to make sure that for those who were dealing with the departure loss, we talked about today death, divorce, departure, or disability. And departure is really the overarching D that leads to the father loss. But for those mothers who have sons who have fathers, they're incarcerated. What are your thoughts on what Dr. Umar stated? Let's start with you, Carolyn. What are your thoughts?
He summarized my point. So if the moms take the sons to the dads, the dad's going to do what? They're going to speak their truth. They're going to speak their truth. They're going to tell them, son, don't do this so you don't have to come here. As opposed to thinking that you got to be a tough guy. So the sons get to hear from their dad, again, teachable moment, because the father gets to speak his truth. So he gets to live his truth out, teach his son, this is what I did. I don't want you to do this. Don't come up in here. It ain't all of that. So if the mother doesn't teach the son, right, by not going, so she got this myth, okay, can't take him. And then look, the son gonna wind up incarcerated. Yep. And it's interesting you say that because I got a nephew, I got a cousin, and my uncle, career criminal. Always did federal time. He said, Carolyn, if you're gonna do a crime, do federal time because they treat you better. That's the life lesson that he gave. Federal crime. So now, did his mother ever take the sons to see him? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why? Because that was her thought. If I take them, then that's where they're gonna wind up. Guess where my cousin wound up? 30 years incarcerated. Never saw his father in prison once. So yeah, nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it. So I too speak what I know. My stuff just ain't from books.
All right, Minister Zumbi, we have the young prince of Pan-Africanism, Dr. Umar. This was easily 15 years ago. I think the video might be 10 years ago, but this was him speaking 15. This is not the Dr. Umar of today. We know that. So code keepers, if you love him or if you hate him, it's all good. This was before the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy raised. So this is before that. All right. But Zumbi, what are your thoughts on what Dr. Umar stated, man?
We used to have a saying back in the 1990s. And I used to say this to single mothers. Where do you want your son? Penn State or the state pen? And
all right,
the
that's
reason,
a Biggie lyric. That's a Biggie lyric, right?
no,
That's a Biggie lyric. Penn State Penn. I can't even say it in a clean way.
no,
That's what
we should
Biggie's.
no, we say that before Biggie was even a thought as a Brooklyn MC. We used to say that in the early 90s. Okay.
When you say Brooklyn, you got to pump your fists. All right. So salute to all my Brooklynites. I'm a Brooklyn boy. I take some getting used to. Okay. Go ahead, brother.
So because the main thing is, and I would tell single moms this. I said, your son has the right to develop the relationship with the father. Okay, he has a right, not a privilege, a right, because he needs to be able to sit with his father to see him for who he is, not you being the filter. Okay, so and also because there needs to be that male connection, if you will, because I don't care what anybody says. There are certain things that a mother cannot give a son that can only come from his father or from a father figure.
Yep.
Etc. You know, it's like if I'm trying to build men, I am not going to bring in Oprah and Gayle King.
Hey, I'm a Gayle fan, bro. You can bring in. Okay, let me stop. Let me stop. I just got in trouble.
You know, we gonna keep it a buck here. Okay, you have to allow him to see his father for who he is and let him determine what the relationship will be, if there is a relationship at all. Okay, because when you start taking that opportunity away, you set yourself up for certain situations that you may not want to deal with down the road.
Okay. Well, look, we're going to wrap. We're going to bring this to an end. We had with us from the We Grieve Differently podcast, Carolyn Williams. Tell Code Keepers, hey, check out this podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts. I definitely want you to leave a review. So after you listen to it, Code Keepers, leave a review. And, you know, right now they have 7 reviews, you know, so that's the guide number. So we need to go ahead and bring that up. You know, we need to bring that to Born. We need to bring it to Knowledge Cipher. We need to bring that to Knowledge Cipher, to Knowledge Cipher. That's 1,000. So Code Keepers, check out the We Grieve Differently podcast. I actually want to call it a show. It's a great show. What are some of your final thoughts, Carolyn?
I think this was wonderful. Thank you for what it is that you do. This has now got me more interested in checking you out on a more regular basis. Thank you for your guest and his input. Again, we grieve differently, so I appreciate his view on how grief works for him. And I thank him for his willingness and his openness to share his point of view. Because so I'm always going to say, you call me Oprah if you want to, but I know now a little bit how you talk because you told me. so that works. So I think it was good. So thank you. I'm honored. I'm so honored.
I say, well, hey, look, I like Oprah. I was an Oprah fan until I saw Gayle, and then I became a Gayle fan, and you know, Oprah's cool and all. You know me, Zumbi. I always got to play around.
You know she gonna get a show, right? You know she and Charles Barker getting a show on CNN.
Well, I know that I see her every morning. Yeah,
they're getting a show. So they announced it when Lemon got fired. It's going to be called the King Charles Show. Charles Barkley and Gayle King going to be on CNN.
I don't know how I feel about that.
He's shaking his head like, this too much. This too much.
I don't know. Barkley's not on code a lot. Gayle sometimes is not on code either, but. All right, Zumbi. Any last words, Zumbi, man? Any last words?
Oh, man. Don't watch. Okay, because just don't watch. Don't watch. Don't waste your time.
You're a hater.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Hey, so we had Minister Zumbi, and y'all know that he is the author of the great book, The Gospel of Afro-Nomics Theology, GOAT, the Gospel of Afro-Nomics Theology. Normally we end with saying some of your postulates from this book. I'm not sure if they really kind of work today, man. You know, I'm not sure if they really kind of work today, but I definitely want to say, hey, Code Keepers, if you haven't picked up your copy of the Gospel of Afro-Nomics Theology, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Back on the scene, crispy and clean. You know, we got to put a little hip hop into it, right? Code Keepers, it was great having you on the show. Hopefully you learned something. I did. Queen Carolyn, we'll have to have you back because you just dropped some bombs, and I think it's important for us to process that we do grieve differently.
Yes.
And that's the power. One of the reasons that it's important, because in our community, we kind of got this crazy message that we didn't need the fathers. You know, we had people saying stuff like
you
this.
ain't shit, your daddy won't shit, his daddy won't shit. We are all better off without you.
You know, and we had that message going out. We also had people saying, fathers, this is what we need to do to fathers. But what we heard today is we just need to grow. We need to heal. We need to do the things that are going to make us empowered, because fathers, we need you. We miss you. And like Dr. Corprew said, find a figure that you can follow, because on the Get On Code show, we want you to be more empowered tomorrow than you are today. Code Keepers, drink your water. Contact your family. They love you. They miss you. And we love you. Peace.
Peace out.